development, does long-term buy and holds and fix and flips, and he brings to us today a ton of information and insights on how to source deals in today's market, how you should go about navigating your network, and how you can go about developing the systems to start acquiring your next investment. And we're very excited to have him on board. So with that being said, let's give him a warm welcome. Mike Baker, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Appreciate you guys coming out on a 55-degree Sunday. Only expected to be talking to maybe one or two people, but here we are. So, my name is Mike Baker. I own Second City Developers, a la carte REI. Second City Developers is my development company. A la carte REI is my consulting company. I started out wholesaling in 2005, opened my development company in 2014, and just been in the business for a long time and learned a lot of things along the way. So, is this?
Yep, it's like
Right. So we're just going to jump straight into information. I came here last month, and the main thing that people were asking was how do I source deals? How do I get them off market? Asked me a lot of questions about analyzing deals, so just kind of put this together over the past few weeks to share this information with you guys. So one of the main places that I get my my properties from is relationships with real estate agents and wholesalers, right? So, and all of that comes with incentivizing both. The realtors, I incentivize them by essentially giving them both sides of the commission. I also give them the listing when we're going to market with the property. In some occasions, they'll get an additional bonus if we did particularly well on the property, and make sure that, you know, I'm the first name they're thinking about when the deal comes across the desk. Wholesalers, it takes a little bit more with them. That's going to come off of having some kind of rapport with them, showing that you can close, that you're a person of your word, that you do what you say you're going to do, and then, you know, you'll start getting second looks from them and getting preferential treatment through them, but it really just comes in time. Developing your reputation. I think for me, it was probably the most important part of my business, was really something as simple as just doing what you say you're going to do, right? Managing expectations throughout the process. You know, and I've learned that there's a couple of different ways that you can deliver information, right? So you can, you know, as an example for numbers, if you're working with an investor or working with somebody, you know, and I wouldn't use the highest ARVs. I don't use, you know, I use reasonable numbers for the construction, things like that. And as people see that you know, perform on what you say you're going to do, you build more and more trust, right? Driving for dollars, that's nothing new. Most people already know about that one. One of the places where I've been able to get a bunch of properties over the years was calling for rent by owners. So that's not the ones listed with realtors. Those are the buildings that are in obvious need of some work. But when you see the drawn up signs from Home Depot, call them. What you may find when you make that call is that the vacancy is taking its toll on the person, that they're in a position where, you know, they might want to get rid of that property rather than rent it if they've been sitting with it vacant for a little while. And those are all over the city. You can, you know, leave a MeetUp tonight and find 5 for rent by owners and 5 possible leads for yourself. JV marketing with wholesalers. A lot of people don't even know that this exists, but in this business, outside of the box thinking and trying to figure out, you know, creative partnerships, for me, it is, you know, made me a lot of money. Right, so when sitting down with the wholesaler, you may not have the entire team to put together what they're putting together. A lot of the bigger outfits, you know, after they do their marketing, they have the call center that takes it. They have the assistants from overseas that are helping them. They have salespeople going out. Now, if you don't have that network, there's somebody coming in, but you do have some money to get it started. Well, you can talk to one of these wholesalers, and I can give a couple names of people that do this, talk to them and say, hey, listen, how much does a campaign round cost? You know, buy a zip code. put it in, let them plug it into their machine, and then you come up with an equity split of things that you wholesale, because you obviously aren't gonna be able to, buy everything you put under contract. The rest of that stuff you can make money on a 50% split, but you may be able to find the property you're looking for doing it that way as well. Essentially talking to everyone that you come in contact with. I don't care if it's your barista, your bartender, anybody that, you don't know who's having a problem. You don't know who's talking to a bank about to be foreclosed on, what situation people are going to. They don't know that you can help them with that unless you let people know what you do in the business. We can deep dive into off-market inventory, into what it looks like. If you're starting to try to wholesale, or we can go on analyzing the deal. I'm not quite sure where everybody in the room is in their journey, but if there's not a preference, I'm just going to go to analyzing the deal.
Let's do a vote.
You do both, sure.
All right, whoever wants to hear more about how to source deals through off-market deals, wholesaling, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then anyone who wants to learn how to go more in depth in the analysis of the deals that come across your table, raise your hand.
Oh my God.
8. Okay,
Okay.
all right, analysis. And then if we have time to.
Yeah, we'll try to circle back. Okay, great. So analyzing the deal, what that looks like. Running tight comps. And what I mean by tight comps is don't cross over busy streets to begin with. Okay, and where I learned this was when I was flipping a property in North Center. I realized that even though I was in Bell School District and everything checked out exactly, because I was on the west side of Western, there's one block that hits the park there. That was $100,000 difference in value just by crossing Western. Now, that's not something that you're going to figure out online. That's not something that, it's something that'll hit you in the head when you realize, when everything else checked out, on paper. So anyway, I stay inside of the busy streets to make sure that everything is pretty much the same. Whatever's happening right here, we're not crossing over anything. Then I'm also looking at different things that can affect the value. Is the property setback on the property? Is building setback on the property? You're looking at a 40% decrease if it is. Is it on a busy street? Are they in a flood zone? Are they, all these different things that can affect the property negatively? I'm going through those to make sure that, they check all the boxes. I'm checking the building code violations. You can go right on the website. The city has a website that you can plug the address into, and it'll come back with the history of the property, what permits have been pulled for the property, what work's been done, if any, and what violations the city's put on this property. I go and check zoning. Now, for zoning, you have Second City zoning.com, right? That's going to give you pretty much the city map of what's zoned. However, on occasion, this has happened a few times where I bought properties where people didn't really know what they had. So if you go into the tax records, an indication would be, and I'm actually working on property right now like this, and they're selling it as a 2-flat. It has a front and back egress, so it already piqued my interest. I looked over at the tax records, it said 2 bathrooms, which is another way to tell if it would have had 3 bathrooms when it told me it was 3-flat instead of a 2. But when I went to the building code violation site, under DU, which means dwelling units, there's 3 there, which now has me hopeful that maybe it is a 3-unit. Just because somebody bought it as a 2-unit doesn't mean that it wasn't originally a 3 when it started. And this has happened a couple of times where I've gotten essentially a unit for free by doing the extra work. What else? So building out the best use strategy. This means that you're comping this property, assuming that it's eligible, a bunch of different ways. What does it look like if we condo it out? What does it look like if we level this property and do new construction? We do new construction. What does it look like as a single family home? What does it look like as condos? And so on and so forth. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm looking to see what our basement height is. If it's an unfinished basement, if it's something that we can refinish and or finish up in duplex and add value. Same thing with the attic. Seeing if we're able to dormer that and make some additional space. And creating the construction budget based on the ARV comps, right? And the easy thing to do is kind of look at a property look at the highest selling properties that they're going for and say, okay, what does it take to do that? A lot of times there's a mid-range way of properties that's gonna cost you less money, less time, and a pretty good profit, especially if you're looking at it annualized, to be able to do is a little bit less is more, type of concept on these things, trying to bang them in and out, you know? Not to say that, you know, best use is gonna be personal for everyone, right? So best use may, you know, for you, maybe different for me for what I'm trying to achieve, but for me personally, I try to get money in and out as quickly as possible. That's the business model. So, whatever gets me there, the quickest. I'm also in this process running rental comps for flips. The reason why I'm doing that is that's my insurance policy. I will not get into a flip unless I know that I'm comfortable with holding this property long term in case, you know, the bottom falls out on us during the rehab, right? If I look at this property and I say, okay, I'm gonna save $200,000 into this property, but I can get $2,500 back in rental, so if you're even $2,000 back in rental, I know it can cover itself in the downturn and it's not gonna hurt me or affect my life negatively. Okay, so as long as you have that in your back pocket, you're never under the gun to sell this thing. Okay. Going on for analyzing the deal to making the offer as well, you know, as we just kind of talked a little bit about, you know, how long is it going to take to exit the investment? That's one of the main things on my mind when I'm doing these things. How much is owed on the property, because I need to know what the seller's bottom is. You know, I know they can't go below what they owe, so it kind of starts there for me of understanding what my offer may be. How quickly does the seller need to close? You know, I come in, you know, I've had a lot of luck with, or a lot of success, I should say, with pre-foreclosure lists 30 days or less. But that means you got to act quick. You know, that's not, you're not sitting on this information. That means these people have done either nothing up until this point or everything that they could without a solution. And now you need cash and you need to be at the closing table, you know, inside of a week or two. So, you know, if that's the case and you have to have this cash on hand to buy the property, there's a discount that comes with that. You know, there's a discount for waiving your inspections and everybody rushes to the table. Thank you. And you know, so the offer will show that accordingly, right? Understanding why they're selling. You know, if there's any outside of the box things that we can offer to make this process easier and a little bit more. I mean, just essentially easier for them. So, for instance, I deal with a lot of hoarder houses, right? And these people they really do not want to show their properties to anybody. They're incredibly embarrassed. They just really don't want anybody in the door. You know, so once you get their trust, you can start working out solutions for them. Like, hey, how about a 30-day post-closing possession? You know, what does that mean? Well, then it said you get to the closing table, you give them their money for selling the house. You have them put $10,000 or $20,000 in escrow from the money that they just got from the house to guarantee that they're going to leave, but you let them stay in the property for 30 days after the close. You're secured because you have a sizable deposit sitting in escrow waiting to come to you in case they don't leave on time. And they get the benefit of being able to get the money, figure out their next step, and a little bit of breathing room rather than trying to figure out where they're going to go without having cash up front. So it's been a pretty good strategy in being able to get properties across the table as well. And this goes back to, you know, the cash purchase, can the property be financed? Well, if the property can't be financed, then you know that you're only up against cash buyers, and you know there's not a lot of them. There's a lot of people with hard money. There's a lot of people with lenders, you know, different lenders that can close on properties, but people that can just come up with cash, buy the property, pay for the rehab, and move on it's a little bit more rare than you probably realize. So, you know, trying to figure out ways that you can add value to the seller and make it a smooth transaction is always going to be, you know, at the top of my mind for me when I go into these meetings. When I get into rehab, I'm copying the comps. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. You know, they've already showed me what people will pay for this property if it looks like this. The market's already told us this, and this is exactly what I'm copying. You know, the idea that you can over improve and somehow do better than everybody else in the neighborhood, I've been there, it doesn't work. You know, you will get placed back to where you're supposed to be, in regards to value, whether you over improve or not at that point. Again, understanding permitting and what triggers inspections, that's huge. So now if you're doing a repair replace permit, there's things that you can put on a repair replace permit that'll still trigger inspections. Where if you don't have licensed people out, well, you'll get the permit because you won't have a license on it, but nonetheless, it's gonna cause a significant delay in time whenever you pull permits, if you get plans, go through the city process and all that kind of stuff. As opposed to being able to get a repair replace permit in 24 hours and what that looks like. And understanding the downside of maybe going a little bit over what a repair replace permit allows you to do as opposed to full plans and permits. Meaning stop work orders, how long it takes to get back from that and kind of figuring out your bottom before you make that decision. You know, because there is a pretty big risk in doing it of overworking on these permits. Understand the zoning and how zoning certs work. So when you get a certificate from the city, a zoning certificate, they're going to give you what you're asking for. So if you're looking at a 4-unit building and you ask this, the city, is this a 2-unit building? It's just going to come back and say yes. You ask them, is it a 3-unit building? They'll say yes. If you go to a 4-unit building, they'll say yes, right? Now, if it was a 2-unit or a 3-unit building, they'd say yes to a 2, say yes to a 3, say no to the 4. But you have to specifically request the units because they're not going to correct you. They're not going to tell you, no, you're buying a 4-unit, this, you know, they're selling it as a 2. So it's something to be aware of that I learned a little bit later, later in my career, I'd like to admit. But yeah, so vetting your contractors. Well, before that, understanding the benefits of using a self-certified architect if you do go into plans and permits. So if it's not a self-certified architect, in my experience, it's taken me 2 to 3 months to get plans through. Self-certified architect had them to me in 48 hours. Wow. That was the difference in that. So knowing what your timeline looks like, you know, you think that you hire an architect and it's just, you know, luck of the draw, it's not. You know, they typically cost a little bit more, but they save a lot more in time and holding expenses. So I think they're well worth it. Vetting your contractors, walking their job sites, talking to their referrals or you know, past clients, all that stuff is incredibly important. You know, if they're not working, they don't have a job site for you to walk right now, they're not the people for you because everybody's working right now on at least one project. You know, so I mean, they have to be able to walk you through and show you something, you know, of what they're doing. And when you're there, you want to see what the job site looks like. Is it clean or is things just haphazard all over the place? Are guys just sitting down on cigarette and lunch breaks constantly, or is everybody working when you're typically going? You know, just little clues. What is it? You know, you don't have to be an expert in construction to know when something looks janky. You know, so when you're looking around, just look for things that stand out that don't necessarily look right. And you can even ask them about that on site. But I mean, it's incredibly important to take in the little things and when you're walking those sites. Now, personally, I don't do any upfront payments on labor, right? So, you know, you get a lot of, you know, give me half down now and or set it, you know, 20,000 now or 33% now. I won't do it. The most I'll do is I'll buy the dumpsters to go there for demo. They cover that labor. I'll pay for the whole thing and then give a draw after that. But I have to see somebody on the job site working before I hand over any money. I just can't write checks and hope for the best anymore. I think that myself, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room have been burned doing that exact thing. Reviewing the contracts when you do get it from the contractor, reviewing them for understanding what your material costs are or what their allowances are. You know, a lot of times what you'll find is that they're giving you the bare minimum of everything if you don't ask. You know, I had a guy give me $1 allowance for tiles. But, you know, where do you find $1 tiles at? You know, I mean, it wasn't even realistic to get the job done for what we needed. But everything goes back to the contract at the end of the day. So no matter what, even if you find out later, it's like, hey, this is, you know, but it's, yeah, this is what we're going by, and we should have caught that in the beginning. So really checking your material allowances are huge because I've been burned a few times by doing that way. Do we have time for the wholesale?
Oh, yeah.
Kind of go back to that. I have done it, but then I would just get a labor on the quote.
Yeah.
So then they wouldn't, yeah, I've done it that way. I've done it, the jobs go slower that way because they're always waiting on materials from you rather than them just being able to run when they get it. So I would say if you have time with it, you don't have big holding expenses, I mean, that's fine, you'll save some money, but a lot of times when we think we're saving money over here, we're actually losing money over here, so you kind of have to look at the big picture on that. Okay, so just some walkthrough notes I'll go through real quick when I am going through a property. The plumbing, looking to see if it's copper galvanized, how old's the hot water tank? Can you smell moisture in the basement? Are they running dehumidifiers? Can you see watermarks on the foundation at all that would give you an idea that there's been any seepage? Electrical, looking at the panel, how many amp panel is it? HVAC, how old is the furnace boiler? Foundation, looking for cracks, missing bricks. Roof, not that anybody's gonna go jump on the roof for the walkthrough, but asking the owner, so you know, or whoever's taking you through, how old is it? You can look for watermarks in the second floor to see if there's, you know, any evidence that the roof's going on yet. Inspecting the exterior of the building for the brick siding for cracks or any problems or visible problems. Garage, is it existing? What condition? If not, is there space to build it? Windows, are we looking at full replacement, just glass replacement? Sidewalks, patches replacement, a lot of that stuff, if you're dealing with any kind of FHA and buyers or Section 8 renters, you have to go a little bit beyond the scope of what maybe your rehab is to accommodate them, which is why I look for the sidewalk cracks and things like that. Again, looking at the basement ceiling height, seeing if there's an opportunity to duplex and add value. Same for the attic. You know, in these older homes, you can pull up corners of the carpet to see if there's existing hardwood, to maybe lighten up your rehab budget. That's just a small list of things that I'm looking for when I walk through. Wholesaling. Understanding the business from A to Z. In my mind, you cannot do wholesaling without understanding what construction costs are, holding costs are, all of these different things. You know, I would strongly suggest like finding a GC that you can shadow so you can understand what these costs are, because it's simply impossible to know if you have a deal without knowing what your construction costs are, period. So throwing any number of just what fits is not going to get you anything for the reputation that you're trying to build with what I was talking about earlier. If you're setting solid deals, even if they're, you know, less or, you know, not as many, setting solid deals is always going to be better than fluff. You're going to end up in everybody's spam that way. So I would say, you know, educating yourself on the numbers, construction costs, closing costs, holding costs, realistic timelines and profits are all absolutely key to understanding whether you have a deal. Focusing on owners that need to sell, right, rather than owners that want to sell. Owners that want to sell can sit on the market for a year and it doesn't matter because they want to if they get their number, but they're not in a hurry. People that need to sell, those are the people you want to be talking to. Those are people that you can add value to by bringing cash to the table. Some of the lists that you could mail to would be out of state owners, recently divorced people, properties in probate, foreclosures with a 30-day sale date or less, assuming you have cash buyers that you have the ability to do that. I wouldn't play in that game if you don't have money locked up ready to go. Building code violation lists, and definitely track your responses so you understand what marketing is working and what marketing isn't working. One of the lists that's not on here, that if anybody knows a realtor, a very good one is the cancel expired listings. Okay. Mailing out to them because they've already shown a desire to sell one and a desire to pay somebody to sell it too. So if you can talk to these people off market, especially when now you're looking at whatever bottom they got to, and you can subtract essentially 5 or 6% from that, you're still at their net number. Whereas if they sold it on the market, now you may be getting a discount where, if they weren't able to sell it, get that same thing on the market. So I think that's a great list for me as well. Just going over some things of how you can add value to the seller. Right, because at the end of the day, you're not trying to steal people's properties from them. You're providing a service and you're bringing something to the table, right? And these are some of the things that you are. All cash closings, no appraisals because you're doing cash and not working with a bank. Quick transactions, no inspection contingencies, minimal walkthroughs. You can do it, as I was talking about before, 30-day post-possession closes. Buying as is, with possessions included. Another thing for the orders that I've dealt with, essentially what I go through with them is I give them that blue painter statement. And I tell them, you put tape on what you want to take. We're gonna have the movers come through here. We're gonna take all your things out of here. You sell the house with everything else in it. And we'll take it from here. They get so overwhelmed by what's happening in their house, they don't know how they could ever move. So by you solving that problem for them, that's a value that you're adding. That's not something that the average Joe that's getting on the MLS and trying to buy a property is willing to do for somebody. And I have set up the moving companies and something across California. So the value that you're bringing is, in my opinion, is more important than the profit that you're getting. So when you go on an appointment, building the relationship, finding things in common when you're on these appointments is great. You got to be able to relate to everyone as a person, despite the situation that they might be going through. Being punctual, I can't stress this enough of what manners mean in this kind of business when you're talking to people, right? The stuff that your grandmother and mother taught you, or whatever. I've gotten a deal that was told straight out that I got the deal because I was the only person that showed up and took their shoes off at the door when I walked in. Something like that is what got the decision to me rather than the next guy, who walked through like an animal. So, so taking your shoes off, please, thank you, treating them with respect no matter what situation they're going through. Are you feeling down enough about their situation? Are you embarrassed enough about the house they're showing you? Like being empathetic in that situation. And truly empathetic, not just putting on the face, like understand what they're going through and, don't make any promises you can't deliver on. And make sure that you take pictures of everything. Asking key questions through it. Why do you need to sell? How soon do you need to sell? How can I make your life easier? How can I get this deal across where it benefits everyone? Multi-units, you need a little bit more information than what we were speaking about earlier. Including, unit counts, rental income, building expenses, when the lease expirations, and is most importantly, is everybody paying? So that's kind of a quick synopsis on wholesaling. Happy to take some questions on this part of it if anyone has any.
Could you give an example of recent bill number or something close to what you've done?
Sure. I thought you'd never ask. Right here. Hey, I'm fully, call me out. You know what I mean? That's what I want. Like anybody that is speaking to you or trying to give any information to you, I'm show you some things that they've done to people. And this is where it starts here. So this is an email. You guys are looking at it up at the screen. You can pay attention to the date in the top right-hand corner of June 10th when it was sent out. Then you look at strategy A, strategy B. We tried strategy A with this property. Okay, it went under contract, ended up falling out of contract a couple different times. So essentially we went to strategy B after that. Strategy B, sorry, the numbers are a little bit smaller on here. So strategy B, it says that, and this is the email that I sent to my investor when I came across the property. So I told him that we should list that, the ARV would be at 420, purchase price is 215, rehab I had at 99,000. So and then I actually broke it down if he was using a hard money loan with what that numbers actually look like. In this case, we ended up doing an all cash purchase and all cash rehab, so those numbers didn't come into play. So it ended up working out a little bit better for us that way. So this is the tax record on the property, or at least one sheet of it here. So you can see where Spartan Elite Investments LLC series. You can see the 6/23, so less than 2 weeks later from that email, we closed on it. You'll notice the $150,000 purchase price. That's because the wholesaler got $65,000 for bringing that to me. Now, some people balk at paying those kind of prices to wholesalers. I mean, I embrace them, you know, I mean, those guys got a difficult job, one, so they should get paid for what they're doing. But secondly, you know, everybody, you know, they're already, you know, as long as they're great deals by the time you're getting them, you know, what's the obligation? Is he supposed to sell it at, you know, $1, or, you know, if he buys it at $1, is he obligated to sell it at $2, you know, even though it's worth 100,000? So as long as the numbers make sense for you, is all the concern should be, in my opinion. So anyway, we actually did purchase this at 215, not the 150 shown. And then you can see where we sold it at 458.5. See, this is kind of the timeline of what it looked like for us. From the time that we listed it, and that is all the way down there at 729. We put it up at 325. Did a price change. And also during this time, we left it up a little bit longer because we were finishing another project at the time, and this was kind of on deck. And that's how it went. So we ended up getting, I believe it was 10 offers. We had it listed at 450,000. The highest offer was a little closer to 500,000. These people were the ones that we took. They offered 495. Our appraisal came back at 450. Real punch in the gut. Couldn't do anything about it. We left, you know, about $40,000 on the table because of that. But we did get them to bring more cash to the table to the 458.5. Was what the selling price ended up being, you know, 8,500 over appraisal. Yeah, so that's an example.
And that first email, is that you communicating to the whom, or what was the?
The investor.
So my investor, this
So
was,
you came to-
yeah, so this was a joint venture that I did 50% equity split. Yeah, and this is kind of what I drew up for him, whether he wanted to make a decision to participate in the funding of it or partnership or not.
What was the year time renovation that?
For that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so that was a 4-unit property. There were 2 people, or 2 units that were essentially squatters in the property. We got one of them out, they just left. The other one I did a cash for keys and gave him $5,000. He walked out, and that was actually in the budget on this original email as well. So we got that guy out. Should have probably pulled full plans and permits on the deal, because it was in pretty rough shape. But what we did do is get repair replace permits and tilt the line a little bit. But we ended up spending, the forecast was 99,000. It ended up being 110,000. But it was something knowingly that we wanted to do some extra upgrades. It wasn't over on the actual construction, if that makes sense, right? But yeah, I mean, it was, we fixed everything that we saw. So we didn't tear out walls that we didn't need to. If there was a leak, we got, you know, to it, and then, you know, and did whatever we did to make everything work, but we didn't change out everything brand new.
Thank you.
Got it.
How much room are you giving yourself on renovation? So when you gave yourself a $99,000 up to 110?
20%. So I had up to about 120 for it still working.
So I know this comes in time, but you know, as you learn to estimate the value of what it costs to rehab properties, right? I mean, do you have at this point a certain rule of thumb to use maybe per square foot to estimate certain levels of rehab, or how do you go about determining?
I do if it's like quick numbers trying to glance at it, and I can't bring, you know, the off market game is a very fast one.
Yeah.
Right, so you don't have a lot of time to sit on these things, and so generally speaking, if I don't have to necessarily pull plans and permits and everything, I'm typically looking at about $50 to $60 a square foot, assuming we're in a good neighborhood and mid-level upgrades. If I'm going over into a less valuable neighborhood, just because I can use cheaper labor out in those areas, I'm probably closer to like 40. Yeah, I don't like using it that way because every property has its own problems, right? And trying to throw a blanket on them at 65 because it's like, you know, that covers the interior. It doesn't cover new roof, doesn't cover new stairs, porches, decks, doesn't cover garages, you know what I mean, anything outside essentially. So, but you can use that as a general just to make an offer and you can keep doing your thing.
Where are you getting data for like divorce, people, race, people, posted?
I'm sorry,
Where are you getting data for?
listsource.com. Yeah. You can go in and really customize it to whatever you're looking for, you know, in regards to like how long they own the property, how much equity they have in the property. You should get on that site, and really play around with it.
On those repair replace permits, do you have to get inspections or does it just kind of depend on the scope?
Great question. So depends on what you put on there for your scope of work. Right, and if you go to my website, there's a blog where I talk about it, and I actually list out everything you can put on there without triggering an inspection. So you can use that as your, yeah, man, I'm man of the people.
Give
So
them
you
what
can
they
find
want.
that there, once you start, like, and electric is always on its own permit. Right, so whether you're doing repair, replace or that, like, you can still pull electrics on the side if you want to, but, you know, if you can get away with it. I try to do repair replace on most things unless it's like, you know, blown out job or it's already on the city's radar. That property, somehow we got past all of the city violations, but they had at that 63rd in Richmond, it was on the gang housing list since 1983. And it was the first time I ever saw it, but they had specific names attached to the property that can never live there again, no matter who owns it. And the new owners had to sign off, saying that they wouldn't rent it to these certain neighbors. Never saw it before, and I've worked on a lot of properties. Yeah, but that was interesting. Yes, sir.
So all this is great. It really is. So there's lots of good things about this, but going forward, what would be the two things that you would change that you didn't know about?
That I didn't, what, I'm sorry.
That you didn't know about? I mean, what would you change going, because you do have to do this over again. What's a couple of things that you would change so you don't have to go first there?
You know, one of the big lessons that okay, I'll give you two of them. One of them was putting all of my eggs in one basket. I started working with a hedge fund that was buying up everything they could on the south side of Chicago, south and west side of Chicago. And I turned over 400 units for this fund. During that time, I was making contacts like you couldn't believe, and a lot of people wanting to work with me at that time, but so I can't do it. I'm so busy over here, I don't have time for you. Well, when they packed up their bags, like hedge funds, you know, eventually do in 3 to 5 years. You're standing there looking around with a lot of expenses coming in from when you were making a ton of money with them to everything just getting cut and now having to pivot and figure it out. So putting all my eggs in one basket was one big one. Two, being diverse in the business. When 2020 hit, I lost about $250,000 in February and March of that year. And that was because I was doing only wholesaling at that time. I was doing developments before that, but just specifically for that year, I got back into doing wholesaling heavy. And then I looked up and noticed that they still let people in construction out of the house and work, and they let, you know, all these other things happen where my lenders were shutting down. Where I said, okay, I need to have a proper balance of things going on in this industry. In case they take one of them from me, I can still earn it through these other ways. Another lesson I learned was counting the money before I made it. Right, so we were flipping a house in River Forest, and we were taking essentially the proceeds from that house to fund the construction in a house we were going to flip in Wilmette. So we had the funds to close on the flip in Wilmette, but we were waiting for the construction funds out of Vine Street and River Forest. But when that didn't sell for what we thought it was going to sell for, it toppled over into the next project because we couldn't properly fund the rehab. So make sure you get to the closing table, make sure you deposit the check and it clears before you set up your next thing.
Have you done?
Yes, sir.
more than 40 units, like 5, like a commercial?
Have I ever done them?
Yeah.
I've wholesaled them, I haven't, worked on them. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Use a different contract, whether you buy it yourself or wholesale it.
Do I use a different one?
Yeah.
You know, I do have a contract that I was using for a long time. And I started getting so much pushback from attorneys that it just makes it easier to use the regular Carte contract for them. And the other reason I do it is because when the lawyer starts pushing back on the other end, it starts making the seller feel uneasy, like you were trying to pull one over on. Even if your contract is clean as can be, they still get that in their head, like we're trying to pull some over because it wasn't on the real the right contract. So I just started that way, get a lot less pushback and just put the terms in the additional. Yes, sir.
When you're securing private investors, active partners, how do you structure that for a specific deal? Is it deal dependent, or do you have like those kinds of things in the first place? How do you navigate the money?
It's a pretty deal by deal thing for me because depending on where I'm at in business, I may have a lot of people lined up for specific things or something that just comes unexpected that I need to get funding for. So as the project comes up, I kind of figure out what my need is at that point, and then which investor around me fits that need the best.
Any other questions? And you guys, make sure you sign in too, because we're gonna be sending these slides out when we get back, so you don't have to worry about like trying to record it.
With your website up, what's your website?
Yeah, it's same. So that we
There it is.
is that
A la carte,
www in front of it, and that
a la carte concierge investment
yeah.
services.
So that site, essentially that's my consulting site. If any of you get into a rehab where you get jammed up, you don't know what to do, or you get a block, or the city comes at you with a stop work order or service upgrade that was unexpected, or just something happens where you guys feel like you're drowning, give me a call, book some time, you can sit down, go over the project with you, figure out where you can, take money from a certain part of your budget that will make sense to be able to cover some of this, or, try and get as balanced as possible. And I'm not saying that I can, erase your problems or necessarily get rid of them, but I can certainly soften the blow of what will be coming. Also, I do deal analyzation as well, so if everybody on your team is telling you it's a good deal and you look up and you happen to see that everybody around you is making money off of it, so you don't know if they're actually being truthful with you or not. I serve as a disinterested third party. You send over the information, I do the analysis on it and answer any questions for you. Happy to get on a three-way call with whoever it is you're dealing with as well and explain the numbers to them if it came down to that. But just having that extra, before you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, just spending a couple $100 and another little insurance policy doesn't necessarily hurt. But yeah, I do JVs typically through second city developers, but yeah, you can get a hold of me through the Alcon REI website.
Can you describe that 50% equity JV, how it's structured?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So the investor essentially funds the project, they buy and they rehab and the expenses of the project while it's going on. I provide the work, I find the property, do the rehab, get the house sold, and then we split the net proceeds at the end, the net profit. So after your money, if the money comes back to the investor that came out, we split from that point forward. And everything gets done at cost at that point. So whatever property I find wholesale is at that wholesale price, there's no money added onto it. The construction is at whatever the construction cost that I'm getting it for. And then that's at the end, we split them in there.
So the investor gets his money back that he put in, and then the profit gets put to the side.
Correct. Yes. And then I also have a model in which that it's more of an a la carte. If you just need the property, or if you just need the construction, or if you just need consulting time, or whatever the case, then it can be broken up, right? So if you're seasoned enough to do a project by yourself, you say, okay, I know what I'm doing, but I'm still a little bit nervous, right? Being able to book me hourly to essentially, help you if you do get into a jam, rather than having to get 50% equity to somebody like me, may make more sense for you. If you're newer into the business, and you really just need someone to really hold your hand and be there on it, then obviously the JV is more of a, more for you. Sir.
With the market changing a lot right now, how are you shifting your business strategy? And also, where do you think Chicago as a market is now, and where do you think we're going as someone with your finger on the pulse?
Crystal ball, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, you know. Goes right back to, see, I don't have the crystal ball, I'm not here to paint a rosy picture for anybody, you know, I don't know what's coming tomorrow. What I can tell you is this. I kind of brushed over it a little bit on that analyzing the deal, but I can't tell you how important running it as a rental and making sure you're comfortable with keeping it is to that process of flipping it, right? So I can't do anything about the unknown of what's gonna happen tomorrow. What I can do is defend myself against what's possibly coming, right? So, that's it, and that's, I don't have the magic answer, I'm sorry.
But what is there any impact on the interest rate on the flip side of the selling? Is that still happening like?
I'm flipping a house in Westchester. I have a sign in the front lawn that I already have multiple offers off market for up to $500,000. So, you know, I always say this, man, I've been around since 2005. So I saw 2008. I've been through some different market changes, you know, it's, sorry, I just lost my train of thought a little bit.
Seen it all, he's been through it.
Yeah, it's, you know, you can't predict what's.
Any other questions?
Mm.
All right, give it up for
That was
Mike,
awesome.
everybody.
You know, we talk about leverage all the time in real estate business, and one of the other really important things to leverage apart from your money is the expertise and time of others. And, you know, just as Mike said, you know, Mike has been in this industry since 2005. He's had experience in market downturns that we may not necessarily have experienced quite yet. And being able to leverage that type of experience is really, really beneficial. So make sure if you have any questions, regardless of where you are in your investment journey, make sure you check out Mike Baker at REI.com. So that being said, before we go into our networking, we have one more announcement. I'm going to call up Ben Sussman over here. For those of you who were at A&M Mortgage at our November meetup, Ben Sussman kind of really stuck out to us because at the end of it, he really kind of turned around and asked everybody to raise their hand and took inventory of who was an agent, who was a lender, who needed an agent or a lender or a contractor. And he had approached me at the end of the meetup and asked how we can kind of add value to helping this meetup grow. So for those of you who don't know Ben Sussman, Ben, I'm going to have him come up here. Ben Sussman, he runs the Lakeview Run Club. Lakeview Run Club has over 4,000 members here in the Chicagoland area. He also runs Lakeview Breakfast Club? Lunch Club. Lakeview Lunch Club. And he is also a real estate investor. He just closed on his another property of his. He now has owned and managed around 12 units here in the Chicagoland area. And he's going to be joining us as another member of our Windy City REI team because we want to continue growing this meetup, providing value, helping you with your investment journey, and really want this meetup to grow. So apart from you all that we depend on to really help grow this meetup, Ben has also taken upon himself to kind of implement some of the strategies that he's used to grow Lakeview Run Club and apply that to our meetup here over at Windy City REI. So everybody give Ben Sussman a really warm welcome. We'll be seeing him a lot more in the upcoming future. We're big fans of him, and we know that you all will be too. So that being said, let's all gather right over here. We're going to take our monthly picture, and then we can go ahead and start up with our networking.
Yay.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Yay.